You wanted freedom, so I stepped aside completely. While she explored secrets, lies, and someone else behind closed doors, I quietly gathered proof, secured my future, and prepared my exit. So when she returned broken heart, there was no relationship left for her to fix or manipulate again. I don't want to be tied down anymore. She said it like it was nothing. Like 4 years just evaporated from the room. Like the life we'd built together was a jacket she was tired of wearing. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask what that meant. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and I noticed something I'd missed for months. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was relieved. And that, right there, told me everything I needed to know. I said, okay. One word. She blinked. She'd expected a fight. She'd expected me to grab her wrist, get emotional, maybe cry. That's what she'd prepared for. That's what she'd rehearsed. Instead, I just said okay. And I meant it. Not because I didn't love her. Not because I wasn't hurting. But because the moment she said those words, something clicked into place inside me. Something cold and quiet and completely certain. I didn't realize it then, not fully, but that moment changed absolutely everything. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. What followed wasn't a breakup. It was a dismantling. And I was the one holding the tools. You have to understand what was on the table here. We had a joint savings account with money I'd worked brutal hours to build. We had an apartment lease with both our names on it. We had 4 years of shared history, shared plans, shared friends who didn't know what was happening yet. We had a vacation booked for March that I'd paid for entirely. We had a future I'd spent years designing around her. And now she wanted freedom. Just like that. No conversation leading up to it. No warning signs. Or at least, none I'd let myself see. No slow fade. Just a Tuesday night. Dinner half finished on the table. Her sitting across from me with her arms crossed and her phone face down beside her plate, telling me she felt trapped. Trapped. For years, and that was the word she chose. I thought about what I could lose if I reacted wrong. The apartment. The savings. My reputation in our friend group. My sense of what was real. I knew that if I made a scene, she'd frame the whole thing as me being controlling. She was already setting that up. I could see it in the way she held her shoulders. This was a performance. And I was the audience she needed to respond a certain way. So I didn't. I said, take all the space you need. She opened her mouth, closed it, nodded slowly like she was disappointed I wasn't fighting harder. And I remember thinking, she's going to regret underestimating me. I was 31. She was 29. We'd been together for 4 years, living together for 2. Her name is Claire, and once, not long ago, she was the best thing in my life. The week after that dinner, she started sleeping in the guest room. Just to have my own space, she said. I said, of course. She waited for me to argue. I didn't. She started coming home later. Work, she said. Always work. Her company was apparently pulling late hours every single night that month. I nodded. I cooked dinner and left a plate covered in the fridge for her without mentioning it. She never said thank you for the plate. She barely made eye contact when she passed me in the hallway. But her phone never left her hand. That was new. Before this, she'd leave her phone on the kitchen counter for hours without a second thought. Now it went everywhere with her. Shower, living room, even to check the mail. I noticed. I said nothing. The second week, she said she needed a girls' weekend. Out of town. Her friend Becca had a lake house, she said. You should go, I told her. Have fun. She looked at me funny, like she was waiting for the catch. There was no catch. I helped her pack. I kissed her on the cheek when she left. And the moment her car turned the corner at the end of the street, I sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and I started making a list. Not of grievances, not of accusations. A plan. My friend Trevor had gone through a divorce 2 years earlier. He'd been blindsided by it, lost a lot in the settlement. Took him over a year to recover financially. He'd told me once, over drinks, late at night. The worst thing you can do when you feel it ending is wait for it to officially end before you start protecting yourself. I hadn't understood that then. I understood it now. I called Trevor on a Saturday morning. I need your advice, I said. About Claire. He'd seen it too. Of course he had. About everything, I said. He came over that afternoon. We sat in the kitchen and I told him what had happened. The dinner, the guest room, the disappearing phone, the girls' weekend. He didn't look surprised. He looked tired for me. You need a lawyer, he said. We're not married, I said. Doesn't matter, he said. You have a joint account and a shared lease and 4 years of financial entanglement. Get a lawyer. Find out where you stand. That Monday, I called one. Not a divorce attorney. A civil attorney who handled asset disputes and cohabitation agreements. I explained the situation. She listened. Then she explained exactly what I needed to do. The girls' weekend ended Sunday evening. Claire came back looking relaxed in a way she hadn't looked in months. She looked rested. She looked lighter. She looked like someone who'd had a very good time that had nothing to do with the lake house. I made tea. I asked how it was. Really good, she said. Really, really good. She smiled at her phone. I smiled at my tea. Neither of us was smiling about what we said we were smiling about. I didn't realize it then, but that Sunday was the last weekend things felt even halfway normal. After that, everything accelerated. She started mentioning a name. Cole. Casual. Slipped in between sentences like it was nothing. Cole from work thinks the Henderson project is going to fall through. Cole has this theory about why the market shifted. Cole recommended this podcast. It's really interesting. Cole. 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 I counted. In 1 week, she mentioned him 11 times. Never while making eye contact. Always while looking at her phone, or at the ceiling, or at some middle distance point. That wasn't me. I didn't ask about Cole. Not once. That's not because I wasn't paying attention. It's because I was paying very close attention. And I had already figured out who Cole was. About 3 weeks into this new arrangement, I came home from a work trip to find that the chair from her grandmother, the green velvet one she'd always said was her favorite thing in the apartment, was gone. Just gone. A rectangular ghost in the carpet where it used to sit. I looked around. A few other things were missing too. Small things. A lamp. Her bookshelf. 2 framed prints from the bedroom hallway. She'd moved things out while I was traveling. Quietly. Without mentioning it. I stood in the middle of the living room, and I felt the wrongness of it settle into my chest. She was staging an exit. Not planning one. Already executing one. I sat down. I picked up my phone. I called my attorney. She started moving things. I said, "Good," she told me. "Document everything. Take photos of every room. Note the date. I'll need an inventory later." I spent the next hour photographing every room in that apartment. Systematically. Quietly. Without anger. The joint savings account had $19,400 in it. Money we'd built together, yes, but I had contributed $14,000 of that over the past 2 years. I checked the balance on a Thursday morning. $19,400. Friday evening, I checked again. $14,900. She transferred $4,500 out. To where? I didn't know. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just stared at that number on my phone screen, and I thought, she's moving faster than I expected. I called my attorney immediately. She pulled $4,500 from the joint account. I said, "Document it," she said. "Screenshot the transaction with the timestamp. Then tomorrow morning, you open a solo account at a separate bank and you transfer your share out. We can justify the withdrawal as protective action given the circumstances. I'll send you a breakdown of exactly how to document this." The next morning, I was at a bank when it opened. By noon, I had transferred my portion of the savings into a new account she had no access to. By the time Claire would have noticed anything, I was already 3 steps ahead. The weekend after that, she sat down across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where this had all started, and she said she thought it was time for a more formal separation. She had papers, not legal ones, just a handwritten list of what she wanted. The apartment, her car, fine, it was hers, certain furniture, and a request that I be reasonable about the finances. I looked at the list. I looked at her, and I asked one question. "Who's helping you write this?" She hesitated. "No one." I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said, and I slid the paper back across the table. "My attorney will be in contact." Her expression shifted. "Fast. You have an attorney?" "I've had one for 3 weeks," I said. And for the first time since that Tuesday dinner, Claire looked genuinely rattled. She didn't come home that night. I slept fine. The next morning, I called the property management company and I asked them a direct question. Since we were both on the lease, and since she had voluntarily begun staying elsewhere, what were my options for lease continuity if I wanted to remain in the apartment alone? The property manager explained the process. I would need Claire to sign a lease amendment removing her name, or I could request an early termination and re-sign a new lease solely in my name. "Has she spoken to you about this?" I asked. "No," said the manager. "Then I'd like to start that process," I said. She offered to send Claire a formal notice requesting confirmation of her intent regarding the lease. I thanked her. My attorney had asked me early on, did I have any evidence that something else was happening? I told her what I suspected but hadn't proven. She told me that in our situation, non-married cohabitation. Infidelity wasn't legally relevant to the financial split. But documentation of character and behavioral patterns could matter in terms of who had acted in bad faith. So anything that shows she was planning this while presenting as committed to the relationship, that's useful, she said. Just don't do anything illegal to get it. I don't need to, I said. What people forget about technology is that it leaves trails. Not because you access someone else's accounts, but because shared subscriptions, shared devices, shared delivery histories, shared location check-ins before the location sharing got quietly turned off. All of it exists. All of it is findable. All of it is legal. I found a receipt in the recycling bin. Not snooping. I was breaking down cardboard boxes for recycling. It slipped out from between two flattened boxes. A hotel receipt. The Meridian Suites downtown. One night. 2 guests. Dated 3 weeks earlier. The weekend of the girls' weekend. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't surprised. I was just done pretending I wasn't sure. I photographed it. I filed it with everything else. I put the cardboard in the recycling bin and I went back inside and I made dinner and I did not cry because I had already done my grieving somewhere earlier. Somewhere in between the phone face down on the table and the missing green chair. I had already said goodbye to the relationship in my heart. This was just paperwork now. Trevor came by that week. I showed him the receipt. He was quiet for a moment. Cole, he asked. Cole, I said. He nodded. How are you holding up? I thought about the question honestly. I'm not angry, I said. That's what scares me. Why does that scare you? Because I should be angry, I said. And I'm not. I'm just clear. Everything is incredibly, perfectly clear. Trevor looked at me across the kitchen table. That's not scary, he said quietly. That's what it looks like when someone finally knows exactly what they're doing. The apartment manager sent Claire the formal notice. Claire called me. Furious. You went behind my back and called the landlord? I asked about the lease, I said. You're trying to take the apartment. I live here, I said. So do I. You've been staying somewhere else for the past 3 weeks, I said. That's not. I was giving us space. I thought you needed freedom, I said. That's what you said. So I made sure to give it to you properly. Silence on the line. She was breathing fast. You're being vindictive, she finally said. I thought about that word. Vindictive. Like I was doing something cruel and petty. Like I was the one who'd started this. I'm being practical, I said. If you want to stay on the lease, come home and let's talk about it with both our attorneys present. Otherwise, I'll handle it. She hung up. 3 days later, she came by to get more of her things. I was home. I sat in the living room and read while she moved around. She brought someone to help carry. I assumed it would be a girlfriend. It wasn't. He was tall, blonde, confident in the way people are confident when they think they have the upper hand. He walked into my apartment like it was inconvenient to him, like I was the intrusion. Cole. I'd never seen him before, but I knew. He glanced at me in the living room. I glanced back. Hey, he said. Hey, I said. And I turned the page of my book. I heard Claire whisper something sharp to him in the hallway. I heard him whisper back. I read my book. They took 2 boxes and a lamp. Before she left, Claire stopped in the doorway to the living room. This is really mature of you, she said. Not a compliment. A jab. Like my comm was something wrong. I know, I said. She left. Cole pulled the door shut behind him. A little too hard, a little too much like he was making a statement. I turned a page. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't cold. I realized, exactly where I needed to be. I want to tell you something I didn't tell anyone at the time. Not Trevor. Not my attorney. Not my brother, who called me twice a week asking how I was doing. The truth is, I'd seen signs a year earlier. Not of cheating. I'm still not sure when that started exactly. But of something shifting. Of her trying to figure out if she was still interested. We'd had a trip planned for Portugal about 14 months before that Tuesday dinner. We'd been planning it for almost a year. She backed out 3 weeks before departure. Work, she said. A project that couldn't wait. I went alone. I told myself it was fine. I told myself that adults had jobs and commitments and that it didn't mean anything. But when I came back, something felt different. She was present physically, but not otherwise. I remembered thinking. I actually remember the exact thought. She looks like someone waiting for permission to leave. And then I buried that thought. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself she was just tired. I doubled down on us. Planned more things. Put more in. Tried harder. And the harder I tried, the more certain I became. Somewhere in the back of my mind I refused to listen to. That I was pouring water into a container that had already cracked at the bottom. What I know now, looking back, is this. She had already emotionally left the relationship by the time I came home from Portugal. The 14 months between that trip and that Tuesday dinner were just her building the courage, or the arrangement, to make it official. Qley was probably already in the picture by the time she backed out of Portugal. I'll never know for certain. And that's okay, because I stopped needing to know for certain. Certainty was never going to give me back the year I spent trying to fix something she'd already decided wasn't worth fixing. What I learned from that is this. When someone has already decided, they stop fighting for the relationship. They stop bringing things up when they're bothered. They stop suggesting compromises. They stop caring enough to argue. They go quiet. And the person left behind, the one who doesn't know, mistakes that quiet for peace. That quiet is not peace. That quiet is preparation. And I had spent over a year mistaking her silence for contentment. Never again. The attorney moved fast. Claire signed off the lease within 2 weeks. Cheaper and faster than she'd expected, I think, because she wanted the door open to go back to Qley's place, or wherever she was staying, without the apartment being a legal complication for her. She didn't think about what signing off the lease actually meant for her negotiating position. My attorney did. The joint account was already separated. I provided documentation of who had contributed what over the duration. Bank records, transfer histories, 2 years of financial data, organized by month. My attorney reviewed it. Claire's withdrawal of $4,500 was documented. The hotel receipt was filed. The moved furniture was inventoried with photographs and dates. Every single piece of the story was on paper. Claire hired an attorney eventually. He called mine. There were 2 phone conversations between them that I never sat in on. I just let my attorney handle it. The settlement was agreed on within 3 weeks. I kept the apartment. I recovered my portion of the shared savings plus a credit for the furniture she'd taken without agreement. The vacation I'd paid for, she forfeited the cost of her portion because the booking was in my name only and she'd voluntarily ended the relationship before the travel date. It was clean. It was fast. It was, as my attorney put it, an unusually organized resolution. She told me that in 15 years of practice, she'd never had a client arrive so prepared. I told her I'd had a good mentor. Trevor sent me a bottle of whiskey the day the paperwork finalized. No note. He didn't need to write one. The night everything finalized, I got a message from Claire. Not a call. A message. Long one. I'm going to tell you what it said without reading it to you word for word, because her words deserve no more space in this story. The summary is this. She said she was sorry. She said she'd made a mistake. She said she thought she'd wanted something else, but now she wasn't so sure. She said Qley wasn't what she'd thought. She said she missed me. She said she missed us. She said she knew she'd hurt me. She said she hoped I could understand. She said, and this is the line that sat in my chest the longest, I didn't realize what I had until I didn't have it anymore. I read the whole message. I read it twice. I sat with it. I thought about the Tuesday dinner. I thought about the face-down phone. I thought about the hotel receipt. I thought about Qley walking into my apartment like it inconvenienced him. I thought about Portugal. I thought about the 14 months. I thought about the quiet. I thought about all of it. And then I typed back 2 sentences. I hope you figure out what you want. Take care of yourself. I hit send. I put my phone on the kitchen counter. I went to bed. I slept fine. She showed up at the apartment 5 days later. I'd changed the locks 2 weeks prior. Standard procedure when you re-sign a new lease solo. My attorney had recommended it. She still had the key from before. It didn't work. She knocked. I opened the door. She looked tired. She looked like someone who'd been doing a lot of thinking and not much sleeping. She looked at me, and then she looked past me into the apartment. I'd rearranged things since she left. New layout. Different furniture. The green chair space now had a bookshelf I'd bought secondhand. It looked like mine now. Because it was. Can I come in? She asked. Why? I asked. Not coldly. Genuinely. What did she think she was coming in for? She hesitated. I thought we could talk. About what? She opened her mouth. Closed it. I made a mistake, she said. I know, I said. She blinked. She'd expected me to say something else. I want to, she started. Claire, I said. And my voice was quiet. Not angry. Not cold. Just completely, entirely done. There's nothing left to talk about. The lease is in my name. The accounts are separated. The legal side is finished. And I've already moved forward. But I haven't, she said. Her eyes were getting wet. I know, I said again. And I meant it gently. Not cruelly. But it wasn't my problem to carry anymore. I think you should go, I said. Please. She didn't go immediately. She stood on the threshold for a long moment. She looked at me the way people look at a place they used to live, half recognition, half mourning. "You're not even angry," she said. "No," I said. "Doesn't it hurt?" she asked. And something in the question cracked at the edges of my composure for exactly 1 second. Does it hurt? Of course it hurt. It hurt when she said trapped. It hurt when I found the hotel receipt. It hurt when I slept alone on the right side of the bed for 6 weeks and told myself I was fine. It hurt when I photographed every room like a crime scene. It hurt every single day in ways I'd refused to let show because showing it would have cost me everything I was quietly working to protect. It hurt. "Yes," I said. One word. "Honest." "But that doesn't change anything," I said. "You made your choice. I made mine." She looked at me, and I looked at her, and there was this long, still moment where I think she finally understood. Not that I didn't love her, not that I wasn't sad, but that the door she thought she could walk back through, the one she'd left wide open on purpose so she could return on her terms, was already gone. There was no door. There was no lock to pick this time. There was nothing left to negotiate. I had removed the relationship from the equation, piece by piece, quietly, legally, permanently. She left. I closed the door. I stood in my apartment, in the space that was entirely mine now, and I breathed. People ask me what happened next. With the apartment, I stayed. I've lived there for 8 months now since she left. I put up 2 new prints in the hallway. I finally hung the shelf I'd been meaning to put up for 2 years. Small things, but mine. With the finances, I was fine. Better than fine, honestly. Not having to accommodate another person's spending habits or their secret hotel stays does wonders for a bank account. With Trevor, we're closer now than before. He comes over most Sundays. We watch football, eat bad food, talk about nothing. It's good. With work, I got a promotion I'd been waiting on for a year. Funny how much easier it is to focus when you're not constantly running anxiety about your relationship in the background of every working hour. With Claire, I haven't spoken to her since that afternoon at the door. I heard through a mutual friend that she and Qley didn't last past 2 months. Apparently, she wasn't ready for something serious. I heard that and I thought, of course, some people aren't running toward something. They're just running. And when the running stops, they look around and realize they don't know where they are. That's her problem to solve. Not mine. Not anymore. With myself, that's the part that surprised me most. I expected to feel hollow afterward. I expected the silence of a solo apartment to feel like punishment. I expected the first few weeks to be devastating in ways I'd have to white-knuckle through. Some nights were hard. I won't lie about that. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from ending something that was once genuinely good, before it went wrong, before the cracks, before the Tuesday dinner. And that loneliness doesn't care how prepared you were. It shows up anyway. It sits with you. You let it. And then it goes. What surprised me was what came after the loneliness. Not happiness exactly. Not immediately. But clarity. A kind of mental quiet I hadn't felt in over a year. The background anxiety was gone. The constant, low-level monitoring. Is she home? Is she happy? Is something wrong? What did I miss? All of it was gone. I didn't realize how much mental energy I'd been spending on a relationship that had already ended without telling me. When you spend that long holding on to something that's already let go of you, releasing it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like putting down something heavy you didn't know you were still carrying. I'm going to say some things now that I mean without drama. When someone tells you they feel trapped, believe them. Don't argue. Don't try to prove them wrong. Don't double down and try harder. Just believe them. Because the feeling they're describing isn't about the apartment or the plans or the relationship on paper. It's about them and what they've already decided. And once someone has decided, once they've made the internal commitment to leave, even if they haven't moved physically yet, no amount of love or effort or patience from you is going to change that decision. I know that now. Second thing, protecting yourself is not betrayal. Calling a lawyer before the papers are official is not cruel. Moving your money before the account is drained is not selfish. Documenting what belongs to you is not vindictive. These are survival instincts. They are responsible. They are what you do when you live in the real world and you understand that love and legal reality are 2 entirely separate systems that do not automatically protect each other. Claire treated my preparedness like a character flaw. She called it vindictive. She called it going behind her back. She couldn't understand why I wasn't blindsided, why I wasn't falling apart, why I wasn't scrambling to catch up to a situation she'd been planning for months. The answer was simple. I wasn't scrambling because I saw it coming before she announced it. And I started moving the moment I saw it. That's not cold. That's self-respect. Third thing, the hardest lesson. You cannot build a future with someone who has already mentally checked out of yours. And you cannot know, without paying very close attention, when that moment happens. Because they won't tell you. Not directly. They'll go quiet instead. They'll stop arguing. They'll stop pushing for things. They'll start accommodating you in ways that feel like growth, but are actually just absence of investment. They're not present anymore. They're just still there. And there is a difference between the two that will break your heart the moment you finally understand it. Pay attention to the quiet. Not because you should be paranoid, but because the people who love you will never go that quiet. I want to tell you how it feels now. 8 months out. New lease. New account. Bookshelf where the green chair used to be. It feels like mine. All of it. The apartment, the savings, the weekends, the quiet Sunday mornings with coffee and no obligation to explain myself to anyone. The life feels like mine in a way it hadn't in years. I don't know if I was exactly unhappy before. I think I was comfortable in something that had outgrown its walls, and I'd convinced myself the walls were still holding. They weren't. She kicked them down, and it hurt like hell, and then I walked out of the rubble, and I built something cleaner. She came back looking for rubble to sit in. There was none. There was a closed door with a new lock. And behind it, a man who had moved on before she'd finished moving out. I hope she's okay. I mean that. Not sarcastically. Not coldly. Actually, whatever she's doing, wherever she is, I hope she figures out the thing she's looking for. The freedom or the clarity or whatever she called it that night at the dinner table. I hope she finds it. And I hope she doesn't need to take anything from someone else to get there. That's the most generous thing I have left for her. It's enough. She wanted freedom. I gave her all of it. Every single piece. And kept everything else for myself.